it was a different high. It was like I was too high. I guess it's the way to put it. So I go to sleep, wake up the next day, and I feel still super high and uncomfortable. And then I start thinking existential thoughts. I'm like, why are we here? Does anything matter at all? Thinking this is so awful that I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. Honestly, that's how bad it felt, and I'm fully recovered. I would say pretty fast, right? Because it was April, May, June. So in June, we're in June now, and I'm fully recovered. I feel like I got over it pretty quick, like very quick. I hear years and stuff. I was like, no way, I can't do years. I can't do months of this. So I hope that I can give hope to others going through it and they find it early and they're like, hey, you can get through this, pretty quick.
Hey everyone, I'm Sean O'Connor, author of the Depersonalization Manual, and today I'm speaking with Hugo Amaya from Charlotte, North Carolina, USA. Hugo's experience with depersonalization disorder began after smoking weed, triggering a sudden and frightening shift in his perception that turned his life upside down. His symptoms included intense crying spells and emotional overwhelm, fear caused by irregular heartbeat sensations, constant existential thoughts, and the terrifying feeling of not wanting to exist. Thankfully, Hugo took action quickly as soon as he realized he couldn't manage the symptoms on his own. His DPDR lasted around 6 weeks in total, and he credits his fast recovery to diving straight into the recovery process. He recently wrote to me and said, "I'm 39 years old and happy to see that I'm not the only person that goes through this at later ages. I started going through DPDR and quickly found your videos, and I'd be happy to share my story if given the opportunity." And today, Hugo is doing exactly that, sharing his journey through DPDR, what helped him to recover so quickly, and what life is like now that he's back to normal. Hugo, you're very welcome to the channel. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. Hugo, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm 39, as you know. I'm a family man first. And then, but then I love my work too. I install and repair garage doors here in the Carolinas. And for the most part, I'm a pretty chill guy. I love laughing, and I guess that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Nice, nice. How many kids do you have?
I have 5 kids.
Wow.
Oh, yeah,
Wow.
5 children. Well,
Five,
my
five
oldest
kids.
is 19, and then 17, and then 15 and 14, and then for some reason I have a 7-year-old now. I don't know what happened there.
That's it. That is a lot of teenagers.
It's a lot of teenagers for sure.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got five kids and running your own business. You sound like the busiest man in America.
I'm pretty busy. I'm not gonna lie. I feel, if I decide I want to continue growing my business, that means staying up, getting home and staying up for another 3 hours on my books and, calling customers, making quotes and all that. So it's pretty busy. I actually had to force myself to stop working so much. So like Sundays now, I'm like, okay, no work, because I was working 7 days a week for a period there. But yeah, we're slowing it down because how can I be a family man if I'm always working? So
Exactly, exactly.
yeah,
And those teenagers can be demanding, I'm sure.
they are. I mean, fortunately, they're pretty self-sufficient, and they're all super cool and understanding and empathetic. So I love them. They're awesome.
That's great. That's great. I'm delighted to hear that. So Hugo, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with DPDR and how did it start for you?
Sure. So it was Easter Sunday, which is also known here in I don't know if it's everywhere in the USA as 420. So 420 is the holiday for weed. Uh, I am not a huge weed smoker, but I dabble, often enough that I could say I occasionally use it. And so for 420, I was like, I didn't want to. I said, sure, why not? We'll go ahead and take this hit. And, like normal, I've been high before, if you will, and it feels really good. So I'm having a good time. I'm driving, listening to music with a friend, and but then I started getting really. It was a different high. It was like I was too high. I guess it's the way to put it. And I started feeling like uncomfortably high, and I was like, why do I feel this way? And that's like you said, my perception started changing, and I was like, what's happening with me? Why do I feel super high? Why do I feel like uncomfortable? Then I felt okay, so the heart palpitations and my breathing started changing, and I guess that's what made me think something is wrong. And then I started thinking, is anything real? Why do things happen? But at this point I'm thinking, okay, I'm high. I'm gonna go to sleep, wake up, and I'm gonna be okay. So I go to sleep, wake up the next day, and it's the same feeling. And so moving ahead just a little bit, this really weird feeling lasted for like about 4 days. But anyway, so that I wake up and I feel still super high and uncomfortable. And then I start thinking existential thoughts. I'm like, why are we here? Does anything matter at all? Um, I see on some of your other interviews, the dogs. I don't know what I have 3 dogs. And I look at the dogs and I'm like, what are they thinking? Do they know that I'm feeling this way? I don't know what it is about dogs, but you look at them and you start thinking even more existential thoughts. I'm like, do they know what their purpose in life is? And things that, I've thought of before in the past, but not this deeply and not to the point where I felt uncomfortable. So I keep feeling really high. I feel uncomfortable. Day to day, I'm feeling like my heart is beating at a weird pace, I guess. And to the point, okay, so that's one thing. The other thing that happened to me, which I didn't see on at least any other interview, I think maybe one, somebody said once, but I cried every single day after that day. And I'm not a crier. Even my kids know. They're like, yo, I've never seen you cry, Dad. So my oldest works with me sometimes, and he saw me cry and he was like, what is happening? But I cried the way like you would bawl as a child for 2 weeks straight. I just cry every single day, at least twice a day, maybe once a day. And I don't obviously I'm recovered now, but to this day I don't know why I was crying so much. Obviously I told maybe a friend or two and they started saying, one friend said, maybe this is God telling you. Somebody else said this is years of pent up sadness and depression and all, which I guess that could make sense, but I'm not really a depressive guy. Stress, maybe, yeah. So, but anyway, back to me crying for 2 weeks. That's one of the things. After the second week of crying, I'm laying on my couch and I tell my wife, hey, I feel really bad. I was sitting there and I thought I was having a heart attack. So I actually did go to the emergency room and that actually helped because I went there. They told me my blood work was good, my heart was good, my lungs were good, everything was good. Like I was perfectly fine. Like, how can I be perfectly fine? I feel awful. I feel like I'm dying. I feel like I'm having a heart attack. And they said, no, you're actually, your blood pressure's good, everything was good. So that helped calm me down for that day. But then I had to continue living with this condition. So during that 2 week period is after maybe the third day, I started going to Google and YouTube. Well, YouTube is my number one go-to. So I don't know if I really went to Google. Yeah, I did go to Google and I typed in existential crisis. I think it led me to some YouTube videos. And I saw maybe two before I found your videos. And that's kind of where it started helping. So that happened in those first 2 weeks. But as I'm watching your videos, though, I'm still going through this, still feeling awful. Um, Still crying. I hate that. I cried so much. I cried enough for the past 20 years. Um, and the other symptoms of existential crisis is the one that it scared me. And I, when I told you I felt like I didn't want to exist, I wasn't suicidal, but I was just like, this feeling is so overwhelming that I do not want to exist so I could stop feeling these feelings because I'm feeling too overwhelmed. I feel like life. I can't life anymore. Um, so that's where that came in, wanting to not exist. I was like thinking this is so awful that I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. Honestly, that's how bad it felt at that time. Which, as I'm telling you, I'm trying to remember how it felt, and it's hard to because, I no longer feel that way. But I do remember that I didn't want to exist for a few of those days. Um, but I think that that's pretty much how it started and what I went through.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and it's such a common experience as well, Hugo. I mean, it feels extremely isolating when you're going through it. But what you've described, as I'm sure you uh came across in a lot of the other interviews, and even with my own experiences,
Yeah,
it's very, very common. And yeah, I know what you mean with the thing of uh not wanting to exist anymore, but it's not the same as contemplating death. It's
right,
very much,
right.
yeah. I mean, I remember for me, I was thinking like it just felt like the speedometer in my head was just at the top, like all the time. And then I would have these like really intense, like frightening dreams, and then wake up into the speedometer doing this. And I was just like, but I mean, how do I stop this? I would have given anything to just turn it off for a while and have
Yeah,
some bit of relief from it. Um, and the feelings of exhaustion that came with it as well. Especially at the start when you don't know what it is. It's absolutely overwhelming, as you said. The thing of like going and getting checkups as well, and finding out that you're perfectly fine.
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with your blood pressure. There's not For me, it was like there's nothing wrong with my vision. There was nothing wrong with my neck and shoulder muscles were extremely tense, and I thought there was something wrong there, and it was like there wasn't. I mean, they were just tense, like, but there was no underlying disease or anything. It was just anxiety. But at the time, that feels frustrating because I felt like I wasn't getting answers. I was like, as you said, people that you're being told we can't see anything wrong, but I'm
Right.
kind of going like I'm like I feel like I'm in a different reality. Like this can't. What are we not seeing here?
Can't be normal. This is wrong. And
Exactly.
I did actually end up going to a follow-up to the emergency visit, and there was a doctor, and I said, I gave her all my symptoms and everything, and she just looked perplexed. And then obviously at this time I already knew about depersonalization because I took action quick. So some of the interviews what people went through, I didn't go through as much because I thanks to you, I hope that all the people going through this that find you quickly can get over it quickly because thanks to you, I was able to tell the doctor, hey, this is depersonalization realization. If you can't find anything wrong with my heart, and she was like, what is that? And that just like, I've seen enough interviews to know that doctors are probably not going to be able to help. Um, and I didn't seek a therapist or psychologist or anything like that because in my mind, I'm like, I know what this is. Sean O'Connor has told me I'm basically an expert now. So we just gotta, work through it. Um, but yeah, the doctors were no help and most people and how could they? If you've never gone through it, it's gonna be hard to be able to help anyone. If you don't understand the symptoms, if you haven't felt the feeling, which is what I had started calling it, the feeling, which I would tell my wife, hey, I'm going through the feeling, then they're not gonna be able to help you. So I'm so thankful for your videos because that, you know, when we talk about the recovery part, I'll let you know that how you helped me quickly. And this is the main reason why I wanted to talk, share my story is because I was so scared for so long. And with the fact, I feel like I got over it pretty quick, like very quick. I hear years and stuff. I was like, no way, I can't do years. I can't do months of this. So I hope that I can give hope to others going through it and they find it early and they're like, hey, you can get through this, pretty quick. Thanks to my man here, Sean O'Connor.
Thank you for the kind words, Hugo. Um, And yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, like ultimately, so when you see people who've had this for like a couple of weeks, a couple of months, and a couple of years, and in my case, or even other people who've had it for decades, but ultimately, all we're saying is that it took this amount of time to find the correct information to identify what was going on and do the correct things to recover. That's all. It's not like there's different types of DPDR that last for different amounts of months and years.
Right. Right.
It's just until you find the correct answers. I mean, in my case, it took me about a year and 10 months to do all the correct not just to find the correct information, but to then actually kind of like implement that into
Right.
correcting my own behavior and kind of find the discipline to do it. And the thing that you mentioned as well, Hugo, of like thinking your friends saying, oh, what this might be like years of like pent up stress or depression.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I remember having that as well, thinking or having that thought because what what was happening felt so catastrophic that I was thinking
Catastrophic.
like there has to be something massive in my past that explains this. Like at one point I was thinking like, what if there's like something? What if something terrible happened in my childhood that has now resulted in this explosion of like anxiety and existential terror?
Right.
But the thing is, though, I had a great childhood.
Yep.
I had no more ups and downs in my life than the average kid, than the average teenager. Um, I, you know, but the panic attack on its own is enough. Like that's enough of an explanation. And also, what you realize in recovery is that when you see what these symptoms actually are, and as terrifying as they are when you're going through them first, they are actually extremely common. They all have simple explanations behind them and are completely temporary and harmless. So when you understand in that context, you don't have to try and explain it with some hypothetical massive explanation from the past or a buildup of depression or stress when you're saying to yourself like, but I'm not depressed. Like I haven't been depressed.
Yeah.
That work is going good, family things are good. I feel like I'm trying to force a square peg into a round hole with explaining it with depression and stress.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Um
I think that the only thing I did give a little credence to was the stress part. As I told you, I was working 7 days a week, and I'm thinking I did overwork myself, and that's why. So I didn't mention though that it was a panic attack that I had when I thought I had a heart attack. It was a panic attack or anxiety attack. I still haven't found a way to differentiate the two. Just I had an attack of sorts, and I do think that it was a maybe a good 2 month period of me working 7 days a week. And that maybe could have contributed to it.
mm,
But like you said, it's a natural thing that occurs often. It's just that triggered the DPDR. And one thing I forgot to mention is that even in the maybe first 3 days when I found your videos, I still thought, well, it's not me because my symptoms, I haven't heard anything like mine. I cried every single day for 2 weeks straight. It might have been 2 weeks and a few days, but 2 weeks for sure. And I don't have the the vision. Everybody, like you're behind a window pane. I didn't have that. So I thought maybe what I have is a little different. But then I knew it wasn't because when I did, your plan, it worked. So I'm like, well, obviously this was DPDR. So for anyone out there thinking that it might not be, if it doesn't tick every box, um, we're all different, so we'll probably all experience it a little differently, but close enough to know, hey, this is what we're experiencing.
yeah, certainly. And it's something that I was worried about as well, and that I encounter with folks a lot is the worry that but my symptoms are different. So what if I've got a different version of DPDR that you can't
That's what I
recover
was thinking.
from, right? So, uh, I mean, the interesting thing is that the symptoms themselves are actually quite static. Like the list of symptoms of DP and DR as a subset of symptoms of anxiety in general And also, as you mentioned, Hugo, the thing about anxiety attack or a panic attack, it's basically the same thing. Like
Right.
a panic attack is essentially your levels of anxiety going up to 10 out of 10, staying there for longer than they should and coming back down. So, we tend to kind of sometimes trip ourselves up with trying to describe it correctly, but both terms are correct. It's an anxiety attack. It's a panic attack. But the symptoms of the condition are actually relatively static. But
Right.
um, some symptoms can feel stronger for different people, often because they're just the symptoms that you're focusing on more. Um, I mean, for me, I remember with me, for example, I would have had like the visual stuff quite intensely for maybe like a month or something. And then for the following 3 weeks, I would become obsessed with a specific existential thought or worrying about my memory or something, and then that would become the all-encompassing symptom. And while the visual symptoms didn't switch off, they became a lot less important. But our focus on different symptoms tends to amplify the perceived strength of those symptoms. But then, of course, that turns into the catastrophic worry that, but I've got a very specific type of DPDR because I can't find I can't find another person with the exact same symptoms that I had. Um, the the crying thing as well, Hugo. It's, I mean, it sounds like it's a very valid reaction to an incredibly stressful situation. Um, I remember for me, for the first couple of weeks with it, like I would have been I was petrified, but I felt kind of flat. And then I did come to a point where I remember I just like I broke down in tears and I cried and cried and cried. Um, and that it felt cathartic, but also I kind of thought like, well, what am I achieving with this? Like, and even while you're crying, you're questioning the crying, you know,
Yes.
this
Yes.
this constant
Absolutely.
self-analysis that just again the speedometer is at 150 all the time.
All the
Um,
time.
yeah, but there's nothing remotely unusual about like, having an intense emotional reaction to something that feels as catastrophic as the onset of an anxiety-based condition like depersonalization, derealization. And that reaction is different for everyone. I've certainly spoken to people who've done long form crying after having developed it as well. The thing about the dogs is so interesting, isn't it? I mean, would you
Wait a minute.
what would you believe that I did a Zoom coaching session earlier on today, and one of the things we talked about was the fear of, or not the fear of, but noticing your dog and starting to obsess about the dog's consciousness.
Yes.
What
What
is
is
all?
that? What are they thinking? Do you know what I'm thinking? I'm looking and like, so you're looking at me. Are you looking at me like, something's wrong with you, man? Get some help, or I don't know. It's just a million thoughts, but that
Yeah.
the biggest thing is thinking that the dog is actually has this, thinks as much as I do and thinks about existential thoughts as well. And that was just crazy to me. I don't I don't understand what it is with the dogs, man. But I mean, I love my dogs, obviously, but that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, it's such a common theme. And you know, it's nice to think of it in terms of like if we look at all the different things that can cause us stress or can trigger existential thoughts, the list is endless. Basically, I mean, the example I often like to give is I would look at this cup of tea or coffee, and I would look at it and think that why aren't the molecules of the liquid coming out through the sides of it? And also, if I think about that intensely enough, could that actually happen? Now, that's ridiculous. But 20 years ago, if I had that thought, that would have set me off on a panic attack because I'd be thinking, oh my God, what if my consciousness can affect this? Like, so it would be thoughts about like affecting like the liquid in a cup of tea to thoughts about consciousness of the dog to thoughts about like the trees look strange outside to thoughts about the size of the universe and everything in between. But what we realized, and it feels just like absolutely terrifyingly overwhelming, but what we realized in recovery is that like the common denominator between all these things, it's not logic. It's not an actual kind of meaning behind them. It's just anxiety. It's just that when the speedometer is here and your brain is looking for danger everywhere, it'll find it in thinking about your dog because the
Right.
building isn't on fire. There's no truck driving towards you. So, but your dog's kind of looking at you funny, you know.
Now, why is he
So
looking
that
at me
must
that
be,
way?
yeah.
I don't get it. What does he know that I don't?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's crazy.
at what point did you find out it was called depersonalization, Hugo? So you were googling first, or were you kind of like googling the symptoms and it popped up? Is that correct?
So yeah, so I'm a thinker of sorts. I like to think deeply. So as soon as I was thinking these things, I googled existential crisis is what I googled. Existential
Right.
crisis. Because I'm having an existential crisis right now. That's what I kept calling it until I found your videos with depersonalization. But that's what I googled, and that led to your YouTube videos. So once I found that it was depersonalization, derealization, that's when I did calm down a little bit until, like I said, it was 2 weeks after that I had the my first. I had two very bad attacks like that during this time. But finding your depersonalization videos definitely helped because when you said that it's just I'm looking for danger everywhere, I started telling myself quickly. I started telling myself, "Hey man, you're not in danger." And I'm looking around like you're not in danger. There's nothing attacking you. There's no tornado or hurricane anywhere, and that would kind of sort of help me. Which I did want to mention too with the crying. Looking back, I am glad that I cried so much because every time I cried was right before an onset of either a panic attack or more existential thoughts. So even though I'm bawling my eyes out, just tears, and I'm like, why am I crying? I I would be thankful to be crying and not feeling the feeling or the existential thoughts. Every time I cried, which lasted for, up to 20 minutes, I would just cry. I would go under a sheet and I would actually feel better. So for those 2 weeks that I cried, it prevented me from getting worse. So that was something, I don't know if you've heard that before, but I felt like that was helpful. But going back to the question, yeah, I Googled existential crisis, found your YouTube videos, and then I probably did hesitate because like I told you, I didn't tick every box and I felt like my experience was different. So I hesitated before I got the DP manual because I'm like, this is not me though. This is not 100% what I'm going through. So I'm gonna hold off on this real quick. And as soon as I got it, I was like, you idiot. Why you should have just got it as soon as you saw it. Because like I said, it was 3 days in and I had found you. I should have just got it then and there.
I'm sorry that was helpful, and I'm delighted that you found it so quickly as well. Um, yeah, the awareness of the condition is definitely growing, and even the thing of like typing in existential thoughts into Google or YouTube and that producing that result is even that kind of algorithm is way better than it was like 10 years ago or 20 years ago because back when I was looking up that stuff, like typing in existential thoughts, like literally got you into a catalog of
Yeah.
existential thoughts, like,
Yes.
which
Yes.
is not what I wanted. Um, but yeah, and also the thing as well about, as you said, speaking to your doctor or therapist or any medical health professional, and it is frustrating when you speak to someone they don't know it, but the awareness of it is growing. It's growing slowly but surely. But it's really wonderful though that people can find that explanation for themselves. Because the thing is, like, once you can put a label on this, like it doesn't switch it off immediately, but it just starts to take the mystery out of it, and it starts to give you the power back. It starts to drain the power away from it slowly but surely. And one of the reasons people struggled for so long, and I certainly did, was just not being able to put a label on it, not just being like, as you said, like thinking that this is an existential crisis. You know, for me, I remember thinking like I'm being tested by the universe. I'm being tested by God. Like this is,
Yeah.
this is I'm being punished somehow. But like, and again, on all of those explanations, felt like they fit the scale of what I was experiencing, because what I was experiencing was like uh, um, the worst thing that any human had ever gone through.
I'm
That's
sure.
what that's what it felt like. It had to be a
Yeah.
punishment, and
That's my phone actually.
yeah. And then when I came across the explanation that it's actually anxiety, my first reaction was like, this isn't anxiety. Like anxiety doesn't make me feel like I'm not here. Like,
Right.
anxiety doesn't affect my vision and my memory like this. That like, I'll take the punishment. Like the punishment sounds like it makes a bit more
Makes
sense.
more
Like,
sense. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Anxiety is way too simple. But again, but part of recovery is that we take all of these big explanations off of it. Um, as as counterintuitive as it feels, we take the explanations off of it and look at it for what it is, and we just say it is anxiety. It's a different level of anxiety than my frame of reference, because this is the fight or flight anxiety that you feel when you're in a life or death situation. But by God, it's anxiety. It's all anxiety.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so, Hugo, you may have mentioned this already, but it's a question I just like to ask people. What was your lowest point in the whole experience? Is there a moment that stays with you?
So my lowest point was those first 2 weeks that I cried, and I had to. So one thing I didn't mention is that I never stopped working. I didn't take any time off, and it is because I found your videos. And this is what I'm hoping that helps people to know that I didn't quite. How you just said it's anxiety. I've had anxiety before. I didn't quite. I found your videos. I found the explanation, so I didn't question it. Okay, cool. It's anxiety. Now I know what it is. I didn't question my past or anything because I want to get better quick. I don't want to deal with this for half a year, 2 years. So, my lowest point was those first 2 weeks where I cried every single day. I had to go visit customers. I'd find a spot and park somewhere away from the house that I was gonna go to work and cry my eyes out, clean my face, and then go put on a smile. Hey, how you doing? Pretending that I'm normal. And I had to do this for 2 weeks straight. I cried in front of my wife, my son, my other son, um, my dogs. um, and that was for sure the lowest point. Having to cry, having to work, having to still live life. But again, because I found your videos, I was like, that's one thing I have to do is continue to live life. Don't go on a hiatus. Don't take a vacation. Don't quit working. And I have a lot of kids, man. I can't stop working anyway. So either way, I'm like, well, DPDR is not stronger than the will to take care of my children, take care of my family. So, but that was my lowest point. Those first 2 weeks of crying every single day, bawling. I keep saying crying. I was bawling. Like some Hollywood crying. You know what I mean? That it was that bad.
Yeah, yeah. Um, it's very impressive that you worked through it. I know it was something you had to do, because the urge that most people have, and you probably had this too. I certainly didn't, and I did it. Was I need to put my whole life on pause, and I have
That
to
was
just
my initial urge.
yeah, until I fix this, until I sort this out. I can't do anything else. But and I don't blame myself for that, because it absolutely felt like the right thing to do at the time. But unfortunately, what it led to was my stopping working and then moving home with my parents, which led to me having the whole day, every day, to just research the condition and check how I was feeling and talk about it and obsess about it, um, which wasn't helpful. And it just got me into that cycle of focusing on it 24/7. So as difficult as it was for you to do that, it's very impressive that you did, and would have certainly contributed to the swiftness of your recovery as well, Hugo.
And it's actually thanks to that story you just told right now. I heard that story and I was like, okay, so he took time off, moved with the parents, and but that just gave you more time to dwell on it. And when you dwell on it, it's when it gets bad. So, no, let me, like I said, 3 days in, and I found your video, so I'm like, okay, so keep working then. So I'm doing something right here, by continuing to work. But it was so hard. I'm telling you, it was so hard crying and having to put on a smiley face. 'Cause I smile anyway, but having to fake it, um, and still work through the customers that was like I said, the lowest point. But thanks to your story, that was what helped me so much, so much.
I'm glad to hear it. Um, so Hugo, with all that said, can you tell us about how your recovery started? What did it feel like when you started to kind of see those internal changes happening? What was the feeling like? Or was it a sudden thing, or was it a slow progress? What was that like?
So for me, I call it slow progress because it wasn't cured in a day. But so it started, like I said, day three, finding your videos and watching those at least once a day, every day from the time I found it. Um, but I still was crying. I was still crying. I still had some existential thoughts. So after the 2 weeks is when I was like, you know what? I'm buying the DP manual. I'm doing it. And day one of listening to the DP manual, because I did the audio book. Um, After that first day, I already felt a shift in the way I thought and everything. So day one. Um, and then every day after that, I was still feeling kind of bad, but I had stopped crying. So that was the first sign of like, okay, maybe I'm getting better. Maybe. But don't get too excited because you might be in for a few years with this. Um, so then after a few more days of listening, I started feeling even better, but still wary, still I would have the feelings and I would still feel like I was about to start crying. But I said, no, no, don't cry. Remember, this is just an attack from anxiety, from thinking you're being attacked by a lion or something. There's no lion here, man. So I kept doing that, kept listening, kept putting into practice everything you said. I don't do a lot of caffeine, but the tea that I drink does have some caffeine, so I stopped the caffeine there. Um, Continue to work. I wanted to work out. I haven't worked out in so long, but I have a physical job, so I was like, okay, so I'll just keep working. That'll be my workout. And but the thing is, your voice, man, it's so soothing. The when I put you on right before I go to bed, that was probably the best part. I felt relaxed. I felt comfortable. I felt at this point, I'm like, did the manual help or did your voice help? I don't know. It could have just been your voice, man. Um, but that hearing you tell me I'm gonna be okay and that everything I'm doing is the right thing to do and all that is what helped me get recovered. I would say pretty fast, right? Because it was April, May, June. So in June, we're in June now, and I'm fully recovered.
So when you look back with just this bit of time on this whole experience that turned your life upside down, like how do you think of it now? Is it something that you dwell on, or is this how have you kind of fit that into your story?
So as you said, you don't dwell on it, and I try not to think about it at all. But it is something that I know I went through. I feel like in a way it was kind of a blessing because I made a lot of changes with myself during that time period. Did develop better habits. So I don't regret it. But like I said, I don't wish on anyone. But looking back, it's hard to feel like even telling you what I went through, I'm going through memory. not so much feeling because I can't feel that way I felt that time, but I just remember the things I did, and that's how I know it was awful, crying so much. So I'm like, oh yeah, you were definitely going through something awful. But thank God I can't replicate those feelings because it's awful. So I'm just glad to be over with it. I'm glad to be leading a normal life. But yeah, it's hard to look back at it and feel that way. And like you said, it's something that you shouldn't be researching. Now, granted, I still watch the videos because they're fun. It's fun to see the different experiences that people had. I've seen two of your interviews that actually I laughed the whole interview because the people you had on there you're just funny to me. So, I want to continue watching the videos. And the great thing about your videos is that it doesn't trigger. It's not like I've heard people say they go to forums and it makes it worse. Your videos do not make it worse. Even when I was in it, it never made it worse. It always made it better. So even as a recovered man, I feel like your videos are still entertaining, and I'm going to continue watching those because if anything, it'll be like taking a vitamin. It'll be a preventative measure. Take a vitamin every day. Watch a Sean O'Connor video every day. It's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
It's a good
Um,
thing.
and I think as well the like so much of why the condition develops in the first place is because of a misunderstanding of what's happening.
Right.
In the same way that if somebody develops heart palpitations and they don't, and if they've had 3 cups of coffee and then they think I'm having a heart attack and I'm going to die, and then they start
Right.
freaking out and their heart beats faster, and then they go to the hospital and they're like telling their family or friends I'm dying, and then the doctor says you're not dying, these are heart palpitations, you're having a panic attack, you drank too much coffee, and once they understand that, then I mean, not that they're never going to experience heart palpitations again, but
Right.
just that core understanding of it changes your outlook on it, and it is in and of itself a preventative measure. So um, I mean, the um the feeling of depersonalization, derealization is perfectly normal, and like most people will experience this at different times throughout their lives. It's a perfectly human, normal thing to experience from time to time, especially if you're stressed out. Um,
Yeah.
but the first time it happened to me, I pointed at it and I said, "Oh my God, I'm going crazy, or I'm dying, or I'm high. I'm high and I can't come down."
Right.
And so much of that was based on not understanding what that feeling was. But once you had that understanding, you prevent that you prevent that feedback loop from running off on its own, and the speedometer from going up to here again. So that's as difficult as it is to go through DPDR or any anxiety based condition. Once you're through it, you have that intimate familiarity with anxiety, and you prevent it from becoming what it ever was in the first place, because what it was in the first place could only have happened because of that misunderstanding and a catastrophic interpretation of what is actually a completely normal and very, very common feeling.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. um so a question that people always ask me, Hugo, I'm sure you've seen this on the other interviews. um Now that you're recovered from depersonalization and derealization, is getting back to normal really getting back to normal?
It is. It really is. And watching your videos, I see you ask that question, and I'm like, are they being serious? While I was going through it, I'm like, there's no way, right? But it really is getting back to normal. It really is. Like, one of the things is when I was going through it, I seemed stoic. I felt like I couldn't feel emotions. And then as I started recovering, I noticed, hey, I got angry at that driver. Hey, I got sad at that. Hey, I got happy at that. So I'm like, okay, I'm starting to come back. Even humor, I couldn't find things funny. Um, and but now that I'm recovered, I'm like, oh yeah, I have feelings, I have emotions. Everything, it really is back to normal. And there's I would pay 100 DP manuals to get back to normal. You know what I mean? I love at this point, I'm just grateful if my life is considered mundane, I want that mundane life. I don't ever want to go through DPDR again. So I'm just very happy that I found you as quick as I did, took action as quick as I did, and like I said, the main thing I wanted to share is that you can recover. I don't want to give anyone false hope, but I feel like you can recover fast if you take action and you do the things that you said in the DP manual. If you do that every single day, then and you could gradually feel yourself coming back to normal. So it was beautiful.
That's great. I'm so happy to hear that. Um, you might have covered some of this already, Hugo, and I think you have, but it's just another question I always like to ask. There's going to be people watching this video who may be going through a very, very similar experience to what you went through, maybe even triggered by weed as well. If you could go back and speak to yourself in the first 24, 48 hours when this first happened and give yourself advice, what would that be?
Go watch Sean O'Connor immediately. That's what you have to know. That's one thing. But what I would tell myself is, no, knowing what I know now, thanks to you, I would say, hey man, take some breaths. Know that this is an anxiety attack or an anxiety-based condition, and that you will get through it. And just don't dwell on it. That's the biggest thing. Do not dwell on it. Um, it's hard to do, but try to distract yourself with other things and just continue living life as normal, you know, and do your best with that, and eventually you'll get better. So that's what I would tell myself.
That's really good advice. Hugo, it's been so great to speak with you today, man. I really enjoyed this, and thank you for taking the time to share your story, and with all the honesty and the ups and downs that came with the experience. I'm just like you did when watching the interviews. There's going to be people out there who find this extremely useful and inspirational. So thank you again so much, man. It's been great to speak with you, and appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you and everything you do, and I'm so glad you existed in my time of going through this, because this is how I recover. So thank you so much for everything you do.
Thanks so much, Hugo. Much appreciated. Okay, take care, man. All the best.